20 past 7, say.
Okay, so we're
Great.
3, 2, 1, go.
All right. So,
Okay.
a word that I've been hearing.
Yeah, you were telling me this word during the week.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a
Enshitification.
word I've been hearing for a while.
Yeah.
Is enshitification, which obviously, as I'm quite a vulgar person, I love. But I think it's very true. It sort of is how would you say, I suppose certainly the feeling and impression that things are objectively worse than they used to be.
Yeah.
Now, I think some of it is, back in my day, sure, you could get 5 pints and a taxi home for £10. It's kind of, yeah.
And $1 in chips.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, yeah, okay, so that's not what it's about.
Yeah.
But I think it's just, I suppose also, we were obviously with inflation ticking up in recent years, which has been such a unusual phenomenon. I mean, there are people born who never knew high inflation because it's been kept down for so long.
Do you know where that all came from, that huge inflation?
You mean the COVID and stuff?
No, I think it was worse than that. It was in 2008. You might remember the crash 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
And the entire stock market, I was trading that day. It was near St. Patrick's Day, and the entire stock market disappeared from the screen.
Oh.
Yeah, so we had trading PCs, and there was no S&Ps, no NASDAQ, everything disappeared. And basically what happened was Lehman Brothers were going under, and the Fed had a meeting that weekend, and the Fed said that if we don't fix this, it's over. The entire system is over.
Oh, you mean back in, when was this, 2008?
2008, 2009. You might have seen the film The Big Short, have you?
I'd say your microphone.
But yeah. You might have seen the film The Big Short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant movie.
Well, that was based on it. And basically, I traded through that. And there's a great scene when your man who's in the office now, and he was walking around after the event, and he's sitting on a seat on a stairway or something, and he says people have no idea what's coming. Because that was the end of it. It was just, the whole thing was finished. And then the Fed just came in, and the Fed, which is a private company, by the way, it's not a public company.
Yeah.
The Fed came in and said, no matter what, we're going to bail this out.
Right.
So it was the greatest upward mobility in money in the history of mankind. So basically all the people and the citizens and the workers paid for all this debt to be bailed out. And what happened was, over the next 10 years, there was so much money in the system, but it was given to the banks, and the banks then used that money to make profits for themselves, not for customers or stuff like that. And then what happened is that the explosion of that money then went on to Main Street. And that's where this whole inflation thing started. And then every president of the States, every European Union commissioner, our own nation, Ireland's debt went up to 240 billion.
Yeah.
And so
multiples of our GDP. Yeah.
Multiples. And so it just became a sort of thing just to borrow more and more and more. And then when they were borrowing so much money, and then of course COVID hit, then suddenly there was this huge amount of money in the system. And that's just how it happened. You know, people blame oil prices. Oil's back down to where it was, so it's always what? 60,
no, I think that's an excuse.
Yeah, oil's like 65
And I think, hasn't gas more or less normalized as well? Remember there was a big shock because we weren't buying, Europe wasn't buying Russian oil or gas anymore.
But I think it was because there was so little growth in the 2010s to about the 17s.
Yeah.
The government just kept printing more, and it's called the Japanese model. And the Japanese did it since the end of the 1980s, and their country has stagnated for the past 30 years.
That's right.
And
they were like, they were so expected to be so huge in the 80s that I kind of remember things like, actually, a good example is, the movie Blade Runner, which is a classic. If you look at that movie, it's in Los Angeles. It's supposed to be 2019, so you missed that. Yeah, it was 2019.
Jesus
so
Christ.
we're 6 years past that.
Oh my God!
But no flying cars. It's
Yeah,
really not. That's not good. That's not good.
Well, Musk is trying.
That's it. That's it. And, but so the story is, if you look at that movie, you'll notice loads of Japanese things like, geisha girls on advertisement boards, Japanese script everywhere, so it was like the Japanese are going to take over kind of thing.
Because they thought that was the future, did they?
Well, they look so good in the 80s, like, geez, how can we compete with these guys? They make amazing electronics. Their cars have always been reliable and good value, but now guess what? They actually also look good and drive good. Do you know what I mean? They're very competitive. So yeah, but I think what is the thing? So they all slowed down in the 90s, and they're also dealing with
they're dealing with massive debt because what they do is
and a declining population as well.
Yeah. Well, it's
aging
population. I don't think that's much to do with it because it's kind of like families take care of themselves, but I do understand there's a factor behind it, but it's called the Japanification, economically wise, and they've just printed so much to keep the stock market up, put it up, and people just said, well, what happened was that risk became valueless. So there's no risk. There's no risk in anything. So you just go roll
the dice as many times as you like, make as many stupid risky bets,
and you always know. Because the second phrase is called the Fed put.
Yeah.
And the stock market, everyone knows that if the stock market starts to fall, the Fed will come out and save it and pump it back up again. It's called a Fed put.
Okay.
And a put is a type of hedging tool to protect you against downside movements in the stock market.
It's kind of like a bulwark or a kind of
and it's
emergency funds that
exactly.
can't. Yeah, sure.
But they could just print the money, and Europe is doing the same thing. It's gone beyond our taxes need to make money. They just print it, and they pay for everything. And there's this phrase called the end of the road, or kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
And every time people think this is it, we come to the end of the road.
Yeah.
And every time they just print more money. So unfortunately, it is going to end in catastrophe. Economically wise.
Do you mean like sort of Weimar Republic or Zimbabwe?
It could be, yeah, because if you look at the way prices are going up, people are like, I believe in Weimar Germany, when you were going out for dinner, you used to pay for your dinner before you go out, or before you have it,
because it would be more expensive, and also the workers, like in a factory or something, they paid at lunchtime, right? And then they were allowed. Go home, give the money to the wife so she'd go to get the shopping, because if he waited till he got home after work, the price would have gone up too much.
Oh, my God. So I don't think we're going to go there, but if you look at something like the price of gold has gone up. God, Gordon Brown, what a hero. He dumped most of the UK's gold for about $200, $250. Gold's up around $3,800 now, $3,600.
Oh,
so that's representative. That's not representative of the scarcity of gold or gold going up.
Yeah.
That's representative of the decline in the value of the currencies.
Of the paper money.
Of the paper money, yeah.
Which, what do they call it? They call it a fiat.
Fiat, yeah. So I think that's part of your enshitification. I was just looking up there on the term. See the term there?
Oh, there we go.
The term enshitification was coined by Arthur
Cory Doctorow. Right.
And it's derived from the word shit. Obviously.
Yeah.
To describe the process where online platforms, attract users with good service, then degrade the service and user experience by increasing prices.
That's true.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's because
like Facebook is a classic example. Thinking back, 15 years when it started, it was like, wow, look at this. Or look, my aunt's on there or whatever, my cousins, and you'd be all posting pictures. Now it's all just either ads or, frankly, just people wishing you a happy birthday once a year. That is literally it. I actually solely use it for my hobby, whereas I got rid of all my kind of non-hobby related friends, and I don't put anything kind of public up there anymore because, just if it's up there, anyone can see it,
Well, I use YouTube quite a lot, and I got to say the ads are just increasing so much now.
Yeah.
And just for anybody out there, I'm just going to tell you this. if your ad is more than 30 seconds long, I'm not buying your product.
Yeah. I know.
Some ads are 5 or 6 minutes explaining, "Hi, I'm Jim Walsh. I founded this company in 1984.
I know. It's
here's
painful.
my dog and
Yeah.
my cow." And when you're on the bike and you're thinking, right, the ad should be over any second. And then part 8 of the ads, you know, he says, and then my dad this. It's like, and you have to stop the bike, skip the ad, and then go again. And I vowed to myself never to buy that product.
What a pain in the arse.
Yeah. Keep it at 30 seconds.
Just hold it there. I think you have to have the microphone really close to your mouth because your voice is quite faint in it. Actually,
my voice is quite faint.
Much better, you think?
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
but no, just adjust it like if you like. Yeah, like adjust the microphone, not yourself.
Hang on, what's this modern stuff?
Oh, what the hell?
Yeah,
I think it's quite a directional mic.
Yeah,
you know? Yeah. Oh, that's much better.
Okay, I'll cut that part out.
Yeah,
and it's I do remember Booking.com. They used to have great deals, really. So
that's true. Yeah.
If the hotel was $100 a night, they give it to you for 85 or something.
It's a reasonable saving.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that's why all these companies were losing money, because the app is not that difficult to write, but they were subsidizing the explosion of the usage of their app.
Oh.
And then when everyone starts to use it, they now flip it the other way. The hotel could be 100 and they charge 105
on the app.
Yeah,
for God's sakes.
Yeah, and
so in other words, you're better off now just contacting them directly.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
A lot of people I know, they use Booking.com, and which I believe charges something like 30% to the hotel. It's a huge amount of money.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And what they've done now is that they use Booking.com and then they go onto the hotel website.
Mm-hmm.
And the hotel website usually says we can do better than Booking.com, you know. And
yeah.
They book like that.
Wow.
But it's so I think that's part of your enshitification.
Yeah, well, it definitely is. But like, I'll tell you another thing that I know it's not the end of the world, but when I first kind of got my iPhone about, I don't know, 15 years ago, you know, there was loads of really good games in the App Store, and you'd buy the game for like €2 or something, $1.99, and that'd be it. You know, you just play the games, great fun. There you go. Now everything it's free, but then you see in-app purchases, and what I mean. So the game is fun.
Yeah.
One of these classic examples is one called Candy Crush, which is a big phase. You know, you're kind of matching stuff, and anyway,
like a Tetris City or something.
Yeah, sort of. It's similar, you know, and because you got to kind of do stuff before time runs out, or you only have so many moves to make. You know what I mean?
Right.
So at first it's really easy, you know, that's great. Then it starts to get a bit more difficult, and it suddenly gets very difficult.
Okay.
And the only way you can progress in the game, and it is quite addictive, is to buy like bonus, like extra lives or whatever.
Okay,
so before you know it, you're spending, you know, serious coin on these things.
Really?
Like, yeah. Like over a year, you could think, Jesus, I think I've spent about €300 on this thing. Oh yeah, like. And actually, what's worse is only a minority of, you know, idiots like me in the past until I learned my lesson, you know, spend the money. And apparently the vast majority of people don't.
Yeah.
But they make so much money off we're like whales, you know what I mean? Like a casino says a whale.
Yeah, sure.
You know, they don't give a crap about the other 90-odd%. Screw those guys.
10%.
Let's just look after that, you know.
Yeah, but 10% of a worldwide market is huge.
Yeah. Oh no, it's like even though it's a small portion of the user base, but again, it's really kind of shitty because you know you got these people maybe who've been playing your game for years, and suddenly you do this to them, and it's terrible. And you know, so there's very few games now, say that you actually buy on the game store. You buy them, you get them for free, and then you have to pay through the nose every time you use them. Yeah.
Okay. I remember we had, when I was living in London back in the 90s, we had one of those Mario programs, whatever you call those things.
Oh, Nintendo or something.
Yeah, and we stayed up one night till about, it was a Saturday night till about 3 a.m. Then on a Sunday night, we stayed up till 5 a.m. and we had to be up for work at 6.
Oh my God.
But it was just, okay, with quick hours, go to work. Then we came straight home and back on the damn machine. And the three of us living there, we honestly slept about maybe 10 hours for the whole week.
Oh my God.
And then one of the lads just came down on Sunday, unplugged
said, we got to get rid of this.
and just threw in the bin. And
Oh my God.
And said, I'm not going to bother selling a hand because we're going to keep it here. Or It was just so addictive.
They really are. They're like electronic heroin or something. Mainline's crack, you know?
Yeah.
But
do you think that's the way AGI is going to go? That once we get these not headphones, what do you call them? Goggles and all that stuff.
Oh.
That we will go into games like Ready Player One?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose it's the logical progression, isn't it? Because the big thing with any sort of game over the years is to increase the realism. And yeah, ultimately the ultimate realism would be like Ready Player One scenario where you literally are almost practically, for all intents and purposes, uploaded into an artificial system.
I was blown away with that movie. I
really
thought it was brilliant.
A lot better, by the way.
Is it?
Oh, book's great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a lot better. And also, the movie was probably constrained by certain licensing things, so there's a lot more stuff, if you like, mentioned, pop culture mentioned in the book, that they obviously couldn't do it all in the movie, you know what I mean?
Did the book have as much Spielberg references as the film did?
More. And it also had Star Wars references, so, you know, it had everything.
Really?
Yeah, it was great. Yeah. Really good movie. Great book. And I don't read a lot of fiction. Like, mainly I'm a non-fiction sort of guy. But, and actually there's a sequel, Ready Player 2, which is quite good as well, actually. I mean, I suppose it kind of closes off the story. And I wouldn't be surprised if we'll see a movie version of that too, you know?
Yeah. I thought it was a fascinating film. Like, is there anything wrong with going into a world like that? You know what I mean? Like, it sounds like it uses jack shit resources in terms of human beings. You're just sitting on a couch getting fat, eating chips or whatever, eating rubbish. But it's kind of like, I was talking to a sort of green person about this, and they said, it's an awful movie. And I said, well, think about it. You can go into your own home, your own mansion with 100 TVs, stereos, cars, all fictional. You know, not using any metal, any glass.
It's just virtual.
Yes, virtual. That's the world. And so, from a green point of view, it certainly makes sense.
Oh, with one big exception, I'm sure it would lose a shitload of electricity.
Right.
I mean, these data farms already are. That's one of the reasons I think our electricity in this country is so expensive. Because of the data farms.
We pay for them?
Oh, massive amount of electricity. Apparently. Yeah. Same with things like crypto mining. Apparently, uses an enormous amount of electricity.
I think crypto mining, before it got invaded, famously used the same amount of electricity as Ukraine.
Bloody hell!
Yeah, and
I heard also like Venezuela or something. Yeah.
Mind you, very smart. I think is it Ecuador or somewhere? They have a big volcano down there, and they've converted their whole currency is now Bitcoin.
Oh.
And they use the geothermal energy from the volcano.
Oh, to power the servers. Jeez.
So they're basically pumping out Bitcoins. I don't know what it takes now. Well, you have to use, Bitcoin's now $115,000. So as far as I know, you have to use at least $110,000 of energy to make.
No way.
Yeah, because then it's an ARB. Because then
actually, I believe it's kind of getting rarer and rarer because I think there's a finite amount of it out there that to be mined, I suppose. Yeah.
What do you think the theory about Satoshi being a time traveler? Have you heard about this?
No. Who?
Well, it was just he came back. Or not came back. I shouldn't say it. That means I'm sort of think he is.
Yeah.
He just appeared, wrote this program, which was quite ingenious at the time because.
Oh, you mean he's the creator of Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
And he basically wrote this program with this it's a looping program which has an end.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's why when you start the first Bitcoins, they cost nothing, but then you need more energy to make the next ones.
Sort of almost exponential, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Until it gets to a stage where there's no more Bitcoins to be made. So the last Bitcoin will cost a couple million quid to make it, then that's it.
That's it, yeah.
Then he just disappeared.
Oh, really?
Vanished. And no one knows who he is.
Yeah.
It's kind of like is extraordinarily famous for the creator.
Huh.
And I think someone said to me, he said, "Do you ever think he's a time traveler? He just came back,
God, I know.
gave the code, bought 10,000 coins for himself for 1 cent or whatever, and now he's gone back in the future."
And he's really good. The profits.
Yeah. Do you know anyone that uses it or that?
Oh, yeah. Actually, there was not Bitcoin as such, but I was, I was working as a prison GP in Midlands, and the kind of he was there. He was kind of semi-permanent locum GP. Was depressingly about 20 years younger than me, which is just ridiculous. And he was like born in 1991. I was like, holy crap! That's when I went into med school. Like whatever. So he was big into crypto.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. He was kind of coming in and really excitedly. Oh man, he was a Greek guy. He's like really, really expressive, and I liked him. He was okay, but he was going like, "Oh yeah, this is great. Look at this. It's gone up to 50,000 euros." And I was saying, "Dude, sell it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Buy a new Mercedes," which is always saying he wanted.
Yeah.
And he was like, "No, I'll stay in there." And then you come in the next week. "Oh, it's gone. Oh my God," And I'm like, I think what happens is in these things is that you need to, this is the impression I got as someone who doesn't really know much about it, is that the trick is to hold your nerve and see how high it can go, but then get out. Because the first person to get out makes the money. Yeah. Whereas as they leave, the whole value tumbles. It
has an incredible grip on the trading markets now, and it's at first most of the major banks dismissed it as rubbish. But now they're starting to embrace it a bit. But I reckon that's because they bought it years ago for hardly any value.
Oh right, yeah. So maybe they've been sipping on it.
A friend of mine does it, and the one thing that gets me is it's quoted in US dollars. Like when we use the euro, we don't quote that in US dollars. We don't say here's $1.12.
Oh, right. Yeah.
We say here's €1.
Yeah.
So when you quote Bitcoin, it's always quoted in US dollars.
Oh.
So why not just use US dollars?
I know.
It doesn't really make.
Actually, to your point earlier, because surely you could say all currencies are kind of virtual now.
Yes.
I actually didn't realize that it was as recently as the year we were born, 1971, that Nixon took the States off the gold standard.
That's right, 1974.
It was 74?
I think it was 74,
oh, right.
Yeah.
But it was early 70s, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, actually, it could have been 71, because something fascinating happened around 1974, which we can't figure out yet. The entire world changed around August 74. There's a great physicist that has been trying to analyze human behavior at that time.
Yeah.
Something happened where you go to work, you work your job, you buy your house, you buy your car. There was a split in society, and he's narrowed it down to sometime around 1974. Actually, it's nearly down to the month.
Right.
That something happened, and it was like the gold standard is one that Nixon took it off. Now,
the other thing is the first oil shock in 1973.
The first oil shock could have been it, but it was the dollar was then hooked up with the oil. The Saudi Arabian government said they would only sell oil in US dollars.
Oh, right, that's right.
Yeah. So therefore, instead of the price of $1 being relative to an ounce of gold, it was now relative to, say, a
barrel of oil.
A barrel of oil, yeah.
Jeez.
And so that's what happened. That the Saudis promised that. Now the Saudis last year did their first trade in renminbi, I think it was. So they did their first non-US dollar trade last year. Yeah,
with their own currency, is it?
No, not their own currency.
Oh, what's the renminbi? Is that
is the Chinese?
Chinese. Yeah. Oh, right.
And they did their first non-US dollar trade last year, and the Americans obviously weren't very happy about it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But since then, the US currency has lost about 90% of its value, 99% of its value.
Yeah.
Something huge like that. Like if you think about it, can of Coke, or here's the weird thing: a bottle of Coke from about I'm just sort of making not making up dates, but it's say 1947 to 1970 was 5 cents.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so for the 23 years, it was 5 cents.
Yeah.
So what happened then around the 70s, around this date in 1974, a bottle of Coke in the States now is what, about $2.50?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So it was always 5 cents, and we have a natural inflation of 2% per year.
Yeah.
But then something happened where it is now $2.50 or something like that.
It's, I suppose, in a way, the Nixon administration have a lot to answer for, because so let's say taking the dollar off the gold standard might have been maybe the wrong thing to do, because it means turns it into too much speculation or risky, whatever. But then, of course, you see, you had the oil shock, and the big thing then was, much as it is now, actually, is the prices went up. So, and particularly, as DJT would see, the groceries, yeah.
What was the oil shock when OPEC joined together? Was that it?
Well, specifically, it's got to do with the Israeli-Arab wars.
Oh.
And the first big one, well, actually, there were ones prior to this, but the really successful one for Israel, that kind of everyone sort of thought, geez, these guys are pretty friggin' good as military stuff. 1967.
Yeah.
6-Day War. And
which they were, in all fairness.
Who's that?
Which they were.
Oh, God, yeah, no question. Like, I don't like what they're doing at the moment in Gaza. I do think Israel has a right to exist, but I don't think what they're doing is right. Like, in other words, like, what happened on October 7th, disgraceful. However, this is like someone steps on your toe and you blow their head off in return. It's overreaction. But
well, that's it there. See, the oil shock was most commonly first 1973 oil crisis.
Yeah.
And they said in response to the Western support
for Israel
during the Yom Kippur War.
That's right, which was the 1973. So it was, in many ways, it was like the sequel to 67.
Yeah.
And in fairness, at first it looked like the Israelis were going to lose, because the Egyptians really had their act together, and they basically, the Israelis at that point, post 67, had the Sinai Peninsula, and so they're on the East Bank, and they had these big sort of sand berms built up, so some pretty clever Egyptian military engineer.
Defense.
Yeah, to make it difficult to make a landing on the other side.
Right.
So he came up with this great idea. So we'll just get some high pressure hoses, and so the landing craft went across the canal and blasted away high pressure water, which kind of eroded a path, and they were able to. In they went. Jesus. So they made a bridgehead on, if you like, the Israeli held side of. And the other thing they did was they had the latest Soviet ground-to-air missiles, surface air SAMs.
Yeah.
And they kind of, with the recent experience of Vietnam, and obviously the Israelis would have the knowledge that the Yanks have, they give it to them. They thought, we know how to deal with these SAMs. But the latest versions that the Egyptians had in 73, initially, the Israelis were losing a ton of planes because the Egyptian defenses were really good, and that allowed them to kind of consolidate their footprint, if you like, or their bridgehead. And did
they have two other fronts with Syria?
That's right. The Syrians in the north.
Yeah.
Although I'm not so sure if they were such a big threat.
Did Jordan do anything, or?
Possibly.
Yeah, okay.
And I think even Iraq too. Right. No, these guys aren't popular with their neighbors.
Yeah.
And so anyway, what happened was the big thing. Why the Arab countries got so pissed off at the States is because the Nixon administration gave sort of authorization. They literally because the Israelis were running out of jets. So they literally took F-4 Phantoms, like the premier American jet at the time, that might have been sitting in Ramstein Airface in Germany or in some unit in the States, and they literally flew them to Tel Aviv and stripped the paint off and stuck a Star of David on it. There you go. So they literally, they had a massive airlift of supplies, ammunition. They gave them tons of action, just handed over a load of planes, everything. It was a very involved thing. And, I don't know if they would have lost. Of course, one possible thing, in fact, it's the main plot point in The Sum of All Fears with Tom Clancy.
Oh, yeah.
About in that there's a nuclear bomb that goes off in the Super Bowl or something.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And where they are supposed to have got that in the book is that when it looked like Israel was going to lose that war, the Israelis have nuclear weapons. Now, they never officially confirmed it, but they do,
They still have it to this
Oh,
day.
God, yeah. And
no, but they haven't said they have them.
Oh, no. Yeah, in fact, I was in the U.S. Air Force Museum in May, like I was saying, amazing museum. I could talk all about that for a long time. But they have a kind of multiple things, but they do a display in one corner about the history of the bomb kind of thing. And it was kind of like, USA, then China, then the Brits, then, all so on. They got the bomb and when they got it. And then I was looking like, no Israel.
Really? Jesus Christ.
So that's where the bomb came from, if you like, is that...
why do you think they keep that secret? Why not just admit they have it?
I mean, I don't know. It's a good point because, it's like, do you remember Dr. Strangelove was like, the Russians or the Soviets have a doomsday machine and
why didn't you
he
tell
goes,
anyone?
the whole point of it is to tell someone about it.
That's right.
Gentlemen, we'll have no fighting in the war room.
One of the most
Brilliant
ironic lines ever. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. But
I don't understand why they won't tell.
I don't know. Maybe, that could be pressure from the Yanks, because one thing that's always been sort of official policy of the Americans is limiting nuclear proliferation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Which, that's why they pressured Ukraine to give up their nukes in the 90s. And both Russia and the US signed a memorandum saying they'd guarantee the integrity of Ukraine.
Yeah.
But that hasn't exactly worked out,
There is. I was looking at that document. I forget what it was called that they all signed. And there is something. There's like 5 different rules to it, but there is something in there that if you interpret it in a very strange way, gives Putin the right to invade Ukraine, which is what he used. So it's you really got to say, oh yeah, okay, that's what you mean. It's like, but really, I mean, doesn't have much because he's broken international law by invading anyway. So.
Well, I mean, look, the bottom line is, the Russians can go on about Ukraine's not a real country and they don't really have any rights, blah, blah, blah. Well, the people living there have something to say about that. And my own feeling is, God, how long should we support it? As long as the Ukrainians want to fight, support them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a weird, I've been sort of listening to a new type of politics. Sorry, it's not new. It's just it's coming to frame more. It's called realism.
Oh yeah,
and it's basically looking at the world and saying, look, things are what they are. Not forget about the history, but what I'll give you an example. Whenever we talk about Israel and Palestine and so on, every argument has an antecedent. So if I say something is D, you'll say, well, what about C?
Yeah.
And then I'll say,
there's a lot of whataboutism.
Yeah. And then I'll say, well, what about B? And you go, well, what about A? Until we go back to Genesis.
And it's totally unproductive. Like, I'll give you a good example is you've got, people in the States, who would be sort of Republican, MAGA, whatever, going, so the Democrat Party they were the party of slavery and blah, and it was the Republican. And yeah, okay, that was 150 years ago. Okay,
Yeah.
the things have changed since then.
I think
you know?
every single Irish political party except the Greens is associated with Sinn Féin, which was
Yeah.
but it's realism is basically saying, well, look, Israel and Palestine are what they are
Yep.
now.
Yeah,
So how the hell do we solve the situation? As opposed to saying, well, in 1948 this happened, in
yeah,
1953 this happened, in 67, 73. It's kind of, or 56, sorry.
yeah.
And it's like realism is saying it is what it is now, and it's exactly what you're saying about Ukraine and Putin.
Yeah.
Putin can say it's not a country, but it is a country now.
Oh, it is. Yeah, I mean,
And
sure. Yeah.
that's just, so you have to sit down and say, well, okay, how the hell are we going to sort this out? And that's what the realists, I do find it quite interesting because
Yeah.
it's sort of getting the antecedents of all the different arguments. That's why I just think,
Well, you're right. I mean, one of my, I loved history and all that, but Bismarck, the realpolitik, and I like that. It was like, okay, this isn't really ideal, but we have to recognize the facts on the ground.
explain realpolitik to me.
Well, I'll put it this way: like in relation to Ukraine, most of us in the West, would really like to see the Ukrainians completely kick the Russians out of their country, and maybe even take the Crimea back, the sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's not realistic, as much as we want it, that would probably really require the intervention of NATO.
Yeah.
And God knows where that'll go,
Yeah, sure.
In fact, that would probably go nuclear very quickly because this war has shown up that the Soviet or Russian forces are not great. You know what I mean? I mean, the only reason they're making progress in Ukraine is because they're just throwing more men into the meat grinder. You know what I mean? Numbers.
Are they winning?
Yeah, but apparently at the rate they're advancing, this is what I heard, take them about 40 years to get to Kyiv. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's kind of a stalemate. Like I think, but slightly Russian favored. But given their, shall we say, resources and everything, and of course, every minute the time goes on, in some ways the Ukrainians are getting stronger because they're getting more advanced fighter aircraft. They've already got good armored, units. The main problem Ukraine has is manpower.
Well, do you think the West just keep paying for that though, or do you think that will come when they say, "Well, hang on a sec, now there's another 60 billion"?
The thing is, see, here's the thing. So, say, Europe. Well, I mean, we all know the States under Trump is that we don't know. They can't be relied on anything, and in fact, they've now shot themselves in the foot so badly that no one will ever trust them because, say a Democrat gets in whatever in a couple of years' time, no one's going to really think, well, so why will I do a deal with these guys? Sure, in 4 years' time there could be another maniac in the White House. So they've really shot themselves in the foot. But from Europe's point of view, I think it's worth whatever the cost of preventing Russia's prevailing, because it's like everything. I mean, it's.
Do you honestly think Russia's going to go further? Like I was speaking to a Moldovan who's back from her home country, and there's a huge fear there that Moldova's next.
Yeah.
I listened to Putin in 2005 at the Munich conference. I read Putin's essay written in July about 2 years ago. And I listened to Putin speak. Now, I don't know, I don't trust Putin, obviously, but you read the essay, and the envision for the essay is Belarus, Russia, and the Ukraine.
Yeah.
And, I understand what people say, but do you not think if he put a toe into Poland, that's the end of Russia?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
it'd be the stupidest thing from a military point of view that anyone would do.
But the thing about it, okay, so one thing I actually was watching a thing like a doc or one of these Rest Politics about that. The Putin of 2005 was very, very different to the Putin of now, because at that time he was still kind of hoping to make friends with the West, and you know what I mean, But then he felt really let down by the West because they didn't probably follow through on promises to invest in Russia and that sort of thing. And I guess he reverted to type. I mean, he is a KGB man. Yeah. And the other thing is...
I think one of the biggest mistakes was not letting Russia join NATO.
That was... I think, I saw something about that in 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, he was doing a speech at Munich. It's worth looking at it on YouTube. And you see the Americans laughing at him.
Yeah.
And, he's kind of...
That's a tremendous what if, but...
Yeah.
I don't think it would work. Because you see, I think there are criteria to be allowed to join NATO. Today, Turkey wouldn't be allowed to join NATO.
Yeah.
So you have to have, probably Hungary for that matter wouldn't be allowed. You know what I mean? You have to, it's a bit like joining the EU. You have to kind of prove you got rule of law, low corruption, or at least you're trying to tackle corruption, freedom of the press, all that stuff. And sure, that's all gone in Russia. It's right back to the era of the commies,
Most World War III movies, interesting enough.
Yeah.
One of the first plot lines is that Turkey withdraws from NATO.
Oh, jeez, really?
or Turkey says you can't use our bases and stuff like that.
Oh,
it's like I wonder are they playing the game between both sides? That they don't.
They definitely are.
They definitely are. Yeah,
because Turkey has a lot more. Like they were being used, probably still are, as a go-between the Russians and the Ukrainians.
Yes,
because they're all in the same neighborhood. They're right there. But the other thing about it is, the way the biggest mistake in this war. Sorry, just to say the point that I think it is worth supporting them no matter what the cost, because the cost of then massively building up your defense, it doesn't matter if he's never going to do it. If there's even a 1% chance going to do it, you got to have all these standing armies and forces and everything. So you have to massively increase your defense spending. Whereas if you've ultimately kind of beat the Russians in Ukraine, with the Ukrainians doing the fighting, it means that, great, we don't have to worry about Russian aggression for at least 10 years,
That's a very interesting argument. I've never heard that argument.
Yeah.
I've never... Anyone I've always talked to about this, I've always thought that they thought after Ukraine, Russia would invade Poland next or somewhere like that. And
they probably wouldn't, as you say, because NATO.
But your point about that is that if the Russians technically lose, we don't need standing armies, or
we don't need these massive
spend huge amounts of money on standing armies. I never thought of that.
The last 25 years or so, or 35 years since the end of the Cold War. I mean, you look back at, say, during the Cold War, tax rates in US were actually over 60% margin, huge tax rates. And they had an enormous standing army, air force, and navy. In Britain, the Royal Navy is a total shadow of its former self. The US Navy is significantly smaller in size, still very effective, of course. And loads of things. For example, the US Marine Corps have given up all their heavy equipment, so they don't really have tanks anymore. This is kind of... They're changing the changing face of war. But this invasion of Ukraine and suddenly a big conventional war in Europe has woken people up. That's why, for example, there was only one factory in Europe, or very few, making these artillery shells. Yeah. And it's not that easy just to ramp up production because they never thought they need them in huge numbers again. They just had to produce enough to kind of, lob them into Iraq or Afghanistan, and you know what I mean? Not to take on a near-peer adversary, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you think the settlement of that war will be that the Donbass will go to the Russians? I think it's the Istanbul Agreement they have. And the Crimea will be kept by Russia.
There's no chance Crimea is going back at this stage now. And actually, in a way, I heard someone saying that some of these regions are majority Russian speaking, and
that's in the Donbass region.
Yeah, I think the Crimea too, perhaps.
I don't know about there.
Not sure, but anyway, the thing about it is, we don't know for sure because the Russians don't actually. They say, "Oh, we've had a referendum and 99% people." Yeah, come on. So if they said, but if they'd said, "Oh, we had a referendum and 57% want us to join Russia," you'd actually probably think, "Oh, that's okay. That's probably true."
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the truth is, but they won't. If they had an action, it'd be interesting if they, to see if you could actually poll people properly.
I think it's settling for the same. It was before Boris Johnson went over that.
Yeah.
They had said that the Russians, something like this, the Russians can govern the Donbass, but there's no Ukrainian police allowed in the Donbass or army. The Russians will govern it as a satellite state, but it's still part of the Ukraine.
Oh yeah.
But it'll be loyal to Russia, and they keep the Crimea. And I think that was what the Istanbul Agreement in 2022 was.
Oh yeah.
And then Johnson went over and he told Boris went over and he told Zelensky to tell him to shag off.
Really?
Yeah. So it's kind of like.
I mean, yeah, hindsight is 20/20, of course. But the thing about so they want this Donbass, which is
Yeah.
but they only control half them. And someone made the point that say the Ukrainians say, okay, look, you can have that and we'll pull back. That's it'd be a bit like the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia in World War II. By having forced to give up the Sudetenland, they lost all their border fortifications. Yeah. And at the moment, whatever that line is through the Donbass is heavily fortified.
Right.
So if they pull back, the Russians could just simply say, guess what, guys?
Yeah.
We're here.
I think this is where your realpolitik and realism comes in, is that I was reading the history of Russia, and it was found around 880s or something like that.
Yeah.
So whatever, 1,300 years ago. And it was founded in a place called Novograd, which is in the Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
And there was
by a Viking, Eric the Red or something, wasn't it?
Rurik the Rus, believe it or not.
Oh, right, the Rus, yeah.
And all the princes in Novograd were fighting each other, batteries, or as always. So they went up to the Baltic, asked your man Rurik to come down and rule them.
Uh-huh.
And he ruled them with an iron fist. And this started back in the 880s.
Yeah.
So what happened was that Novograd was the first place, and then they moved to Kiev.
Yeah.
And at this time, Moscow was a small little village.
Yeah.
So technically, Russia's capital back then was Kiev.
Yeah. I think you told me that before.
Yeah. And so this is where, as you were saying, the realpolitik is somewhat, if not so what. Obviously, history means things.
Yeah.
But if you were to go on forever saying, well, we own this, you own that.
Yeah.
And sure, the whole world there was a fantastic agreement done between the African nations in the early 2000s, and they were having civil wars and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And
border clashes and stuff, yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's called the Organization of African Nations or something like that.
I think you're right. Yeah.
They all met and they said, right, whoever owns what now,
let's just agree.
Owns what now, and that's it. And no moving tribes over, no saying that we were on this side of the mountains, you were on that side of the river. And the civil wars in Africa have plummeted.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And God knows, the African nations would have plenty of cause to say our borders are ridiculous because they were just drawn with a ruler on some map in London.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not taking our rivers or
okay, so we've a bit there and a bit there and a bit there. Oh, and we got this bit going like this so we can reach the sea. Madness,
I know, it's crazy.
But, just the thing about the argument about, to say, well, like Ukraine was part of Russia and blah, blah, blah. But it's not now. Because and there's loads of examples of that. For example, so let's say, we want Alaska back. Alaska was part of the Russian Empire.
Yeah.
They sold it.
So therefore the Russians should invade Alaska.
Yeah, there you go. That would say, oh, okay, yeah, you have a legitimate claim.
Yeah.
Equally, you got to look at actually Poland today. Poland today is considerably more westwards than it used to be, because post-World War II, the bit of eastern Poland that the Soviet Union kind of invaded in 1939, they decided to hold on to, and they just carved out stuff in the West from Eastern Germany, and that became Poland. So hence Danzig is Gdansk.
Oh yes,
I think Breslau is Wroclaw, or I'm not pronouncing it correctly. It's and the other thing they did, because they knew the lesson of the so-called the Sudetenland, which was like, look, these people are ethnic Germans, they want to be German, come on. So they just basically kicked all the Germans out. They said, piss off. And you see that now is, contrary to humanitarian law now. I mean, that's ethnic cleansing, you know? And that's what they did. That's what they did post-World War II. So, because they didn't want any sort of future population in the area saying, we want to rejoin Germany.
Exactly, yeah.
Because there ain't no Germans there, you know?
Then you have to ask the question about Northern Ireland. I watch...
What's going to happen there?
Yeah, but I watch loyalist videos, and there's a guy called Freedom Dad up there. He's an interesting man. He's from a very hardcore loyalist area.
Sure.
And
have they got plenty of flags?
And he's a citizen journalist. Now, he'd be a hardcore loyalist, but but he's very much if you want for a better word, a friendly loyalist. He did a speech outside the GPO in Dublin.
Okay.
Surrounded by thousands of tricolours, and he loves his loyalism. He loves the 6 counties. He loves all that, and he wants that to stay there forever. So you sort of say to yourself, well, then, if we were to look at real politics, Northern Ireland has to stay, but then you have a huge nationalist population up there. So it's it could be.
Well, I suppose if you look at the demographically, it would seem that, already sort of the Catholic population now are bigger than the Protestant crowd. But that doesn't necessarily mean all Catholics want to join Ireland.
Yeah, sure.
No, because it's much more of an economic thing. So if you're a wealthy Catholic businessman, you're thinking, do I want to join? I don't know. And then there's other things like they'll lose their free GP visits in the NHS.
I think they're crazy. They have the best situation of any nation.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Well, in terms of trade.
Access to Europe, access to Britain.
They're in the EU and they're in the UK.
My God. What's his, who was the guy? Davis McWilliams.
Oh, yeah.
Had said that, generally what should happen, the corridor between Dublin and Belfast should be just business. That's it. Because you have 2 huge hubs. So it should go from the centre of the island up to the north. And he said Northern Ireland should be booming. It should be just... But the political classes won't let it go, which is a shame,
I think I was talking to a friend of mine, Tom, my friend, and he's very knowledgeable about the North because his mum's from Enniskillen, and so he's always had a good insight of the place, and he made a very interesting point that it's very likely that shall I say control. Sovereignty of Northern Ireland may well pass from Britain or UK to Republic of Ireland. Yeah. But, I think it'll have to like a federalized system, So, I could never see in any universe like Gardaí cars going down, the Shankill or something like, they'd be murdered, Yeah. So I think, it'll probably mean things like the North may be technically part of Ireland, but, so insofar as financial, budgetary, foreign relations, that's all taken care of in the Dáil in Dublin, but they have local government there, so they have their own police force, devolution, a bit like Wales and Scotland, or, but so that might be the only way to do it. And the other thing I would be in favour for, because I just find, I'm going to get probably in trouble with this, but tricolours, the French were the first to do it. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Then everybody does it. It's just the most boring flag,
Tricolours, they have fantastic messages in them.
I don't know. I just don't like them. Yeah. And also, it's so similar to, like, what is it? The Ivory Coast and I think India.
The Ivory Coast is our flag backwards.
Yeah, basically.
And India is our flag vertically, but with a wheel, with the spinning
wheel.
Yeah,
it has that thing in the middle, yeah.
The spinning wheel.
But, I personally myself, I think, a good compromise.
What would you like, the flag of the 4 provinces? That one? Did you ever see that one?
That's cool. Or how about this? A simple flag, like a green flag or even a green and orange flag with a nice golden harp in the middle.
Yeah, that's nice, yeah.
I think it'd be great. And the other thing about it was you could actually pick it out at a glance in the UN as opposed to going, it's, I don't know. I just think it's so non-distinctive, you know?
You start to salute the Ivory Coast.
Jeez, I know.
That's
Should have feed off. I'm sorry, sir. No, you're 3 flags down.
Jesus. I was just thinking, just before we go to the end, or we're sort of running towards the end, 1973, the Yom Kippur War, I think the reason Israel won, I remember reading this in Kissinger's biography.
Oh, yeah.
And Kissinger phoned up the then leader of the Soviet Union at the time.
Brezhnev, it would have been.
Who was supplying all the weapons.
Oh, yeah.
To Egypt. And he said, President Nixon's going nuts here. I can't control him. He just wants he just wants to nuke Egypt, Syria. I don't know what the hell we're going to do.
Yeah.
You must tell him to turn those Soviet SAMs, turn them off, and stop using them. And the Russians panicked. And the thing was, Nixon was out playing golf.
Jeez. Yeah.
Kissinger just made it up to try to scare the Russians.
Holy shit. I mean, that could have backfired spectacularly. Like, the Russians could have hung up the phone and go,
okay.
Right, lads, first strike. Come on. They're going to hit us anyway, you know?
And apparently Nixon was out playing golf. It was just like, talk about a pretty good way of... God.
I think in a way, I suppose, Kissinger was a pretty evil man, but a very important man, and obviously did some good. Well, you know what I mean. Actually, I must read that book. Actually, I haven't read that.
It's written by Neil Ferguson, and he's a Scottish historian, and it's
that'd be cool.
It's very good.
You know that we all think of the Bay of Pigs, or the Cuban Missile Crisis is the closest we came to nuclear war. It probably was, but there was, and it wasn't really known in the West until afterwards, that so Brezhnev was dead at this stage, and it was like Andropov was in charge, and he was a very paranoid Cold Warrior. He was also ex-KGB. And this was in 1983. And I'm not sure why, but they really got the feeling that, they all thought Reagan was a cowboy, a bit like your man was portraying Nixon.
The actor.
Yeah, but also the fact that he'd really been talking tough on Russia, an evil empire and all sort of things. So he really spooked them, actually, which was...
greatest acting he ever did.
Which?
Greatest acting he ever did.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Although, I think he was...
like Star Wars didn't exist.
No, it was never really, no.
It wasn't even possible.
Yeah.
And yet he managed to convince the Russians, and they started putting so much money into space defense, for want of a better word.
But also I think they did kind of think like, oh my God, and also, the price of oil had dropped considerably, and that was so key to Russian income that they just thought, can't do this. But anyway, there was a thing called the Able Archer was the name of the NATO exercise. Able Archer 83. And there was 2 parts to it. The first part was, fellas out in tanks in the field and helicopters doing war games, practice, The second part was a sort of a simulation where actually, like Reagan, Thatcher, all the heads of government took place to simulate there's a Russian attack incoming, so make sure we all know what to do, to launch the missiles or launch an attack, so that, they're prepared. So, it's not a question of, Mrs. Thatcher, we've got 10 minutes, the missiles are on their way. Oh, God, I don't know what to do. No, she knows exactly what to do, And the Russians got the idea that this was a cover. It wasn't an exercise. They were actually going to do it, and they had this espionage thing called Operation Ryan, I think, which stands for something in Russian. And, they all sorts of things, looking for evidence that they're planning for war, like literally counting the lights in the Ministry of Defense in the windows that are on at night to see if it's busier, or looking at hospitals here, are they ordering extra blood or whatever.
Jesus.
And they got very close to a preemptive strike because they thought they were going to get it themselves. And what was the guy's name? Oleg something or art. You know, he was the Brits kind of star spy within a very highly placed.
MI6.
Yeah. So he could see what was happening, and he got on to his handlers in London and said, "Do you guys not see this? Like, do you not realize what's going on?" And anyway, I mean, we can probably thank him because
Bloody hell.
they immediately terminated the exercise and stood down everything.
And everyone went home.
And they just said, "Well, Jesus, you know this." And of course, the Russians.
When was the non-first strike thing or signed, so to speak, that each country said we're not going to strike first? Was there not an agreement?
No, I think every country says, "Oh, no first used." The Soviets do too.
Yeah,
but you know, that's all well and good. But when your back's against the wall and you're thinking, well, if we don't use these nuclear weapons, that's the end of our country anyway. Yeah. And so if we're going to go down, they're coming down with us. You know? Yeah.
Okay, so enshitification. Do you think it's going to come to an end? Like, online platforms attract users with good service, then degrade the service and user experience by increasing prices, ads, or
do you know, there's a couple of mad things, and thankfully I don't think we have them here in Europe, probably because the EU actually is good at consumer protection, unlike the States, which is one of the reasons why the Republicans can't stand the EU. So do you know that if you buy a car at the States, I think like certain like BMW or whatever, the car comes installed from the factory with, say, heated seats. Yeah. Right? Just to use one example. Yeah. And that's great for the first year of ownership. But after that, you have to pay a kind of a subscription fee to BMW to use the features that are in your car. You know, and if you don't, heated seats don't work anymore.
Oh my God.
Which is mad.
Is that not happening?
Apparently it's happening, yeah. And like just another thing, and I suppose it's not, you can't put all the blame on, you know, the companies or whatever, because consumers themselves won't accept a price increase. So I saw a recent example, some columnist in the New York Times or whatever was saying how she bought a pair of black Levi's jeans or something in 20 years ago when she was in college, so in the noughties, and it cost her $49.95 or whatever.
Yeah.
And she still has them today, and they're still in good condition, even though she's worn them, washed them loads. They're still quite good. So she said she wanted the same pair of jeans, but in a different color or whatever. So she went out and bought them, and they're the same, ostensibly the same, like Levi's, whatever, 5 something, same cut, same everything, and they're still $49.95. You see, 20 years later, and the thing is, they're not the same pair of jeans, because she said after a few months, like the colors faded, they started tearing at the seams. So they kept the price at $49.95, but you're not getting the same quality as 20 years ago. And you know, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if people were more informed, or maybe they're a bit more upfront about this, you know, the smart move would be to, you know what, I'd rather pay, I don't know, $65, $70, $80 for the same pair of jeans if it had the same quality, because I'll have them in 20 years' time. Do you know what I mean? As opposed to spending $50 every 2 years to replace them.
Yeah, and having to go back.
Yeah. Do you know, I love It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
I've never seen that, no.
Oh, you'd love it. Yeah. It's really good. And they're just so ticked, a lot of them. They're just wonderfully stupid. And the only smart person in the group is Danny DeVito. He's the stepdad. Anyway, and it's hilarious because two of the lads, I think they're so smart. They're sort of saying something about, we got to get a new couch. And they say, well, what was wrong with your old couch? And they're like, well, we've had it 15 years. It's kind of worn out, you know. Need to get another one. And the telly was really good though, because we didn't buy it. We rented it $25 like a week or something. And then Danny DeVito goes, "You've just spent about $25,000 on a couch." Oh, it's class. Oh, right, brilliant stuff.
Listen, we're going to wind down there.
All right.
Okay, great. We'll have a chat next week, right?
Always good. You bet.
Cheers.
Bye.
I love that Danny DeVito.